Welcome back to another one of my videos. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Laura, and today I'm going to show you how to make pretzels 4 different ways. So if you want to see how to make these, keep watching the video and let's get right into it. Now the first thing we need to make is our dough so we can get that proofing. So for that you're going to need 250 milliliters of lukewarm water, 7 grams of yeast. I ran out, so I'm only using 4 grams of yeast. It should be fine. My dough just might rise a little bit slower than yours, but that's a-okay. You're also going to need 10 grams of salt, 15 grams of sugar, 25 grams of melted butter, and last but not least, 500 grams of flour. Now, as always, we're going to start by activating our yeast with a little bit of our sugar. Yes, this one's sugar. And a splash of water. Just gonna mix it around. I'm gonna set that aside for about 10 minutes or so. And at that point, it should be nice and bubbly and gross. And that's a good indicator that our yeast is still active and that our bread is going to get super nice and fluffy. Now in the meantime, we can already go ahead and add the remaining ingredients into our big mixing bowl. I always like to make sure that my salt goes on the outer edge so that it comes in contact with the yeast at the very end. Now, as you can see, the yeast is nice and bubbly. So at this point, I'm just going to add this to my big mixing bowl, and then we're going to knead this for about 10 minutes. Now, as you can see, our dough has come together really nicely. I let it knead for about 10 minutes or so. So at this point, I'm going to start portioning out my dough. Now, depending on how big you want your baked goods to be in the end, you can have bigger portions, and if you want them to be a little bit smaller, you can make smaller portions. I think I'm going to portion out about 50 grams per baked good. Now I managed to get out 16 portions, so from here on out I'm just going to roll these into some nice smooth dough balls. I'm just going to start by pulling together the pieces of my dough to get a nice smooth outer edge. I'm going to flip it over and then just roll it into a nice smooth dough ball. And then if there's a little bit of a gap at the bottom, I'm just going to pinch it together. I'm going to do that with the rest of my dough pieces here. Now, to make sure that our dough doesn't dry out, we want to cover it with either some plastic wrap or just with a wet kitchen towel. Now, normally I would just let this proof for about 30 to 45 minutes, but because I'm using a little bit less yeast than normal, I'm probably going to let this proof for just about an hour, maybe just about over an hour here. You basically just want it to be a little bit more poofed up and a little bit more airy, and that's going to make shaping a lot easier. So it's been about an hour, and as you can tell, our dough has proofed quite a bit here. So at this point we can get to shaping. Now, as I already mentioned, I want to do 4 different designs. So the first one are just going to be pretzel sticks, then I'm going to do pretzel knots, then I'm going to do a 1-stranded pretzel braid, and lastly I want to make some porcupines. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Now the easiest one to make is probably going to be the porcupine. So for that, we're just going to take our dough ball that we have here, and we basically just want to elongate it a little bit because the porcupine has a little bit of a pointy nose. So we're going to roll it a little bit more oval shaped, and then we're going to just shape a little tiny point at the front, which is going to turn into its nose. Just going to pinch it together a little bit to elongate it. That seems pretty good to me, so I'm just going to set this aside for now. Now the next shape we're going to make are our pretzel knots, and this one is also really easy. We're just going to take our dough. I like flattening it out a little bit and pinching the ends together, and I find that just makes it a little bit easier to roll it out. Once you have a piece that's about 20 centimeters long, you're basically just going to make a knot. And we're basically just going to tuck our 2 ends under and inside of our knot that we created. So our strand that is going over the outside of our knot, we're just going to tuck underneath. And this string that is going under our knot, we're just going to tuck inside our knot. I like making sure that I pinch together the end pieces to the actual knot, and that's just going to help make sure that it doesn't open up while it's proofing. And there you go. That's the second shape, nice and easy. Now the third shape that we're going to make is our 1-stranded braid. So once again, we're going to start by flattening this out a little bit and then rolling it out to a nice long piece. Now once you have your nice long piece like this, you're going to find about 2/3 on your pretzel, and you're going to make a loop. Now we're going to take our remaining piece and we're going to go over the strand and underneath our second strand. From here on out, we're going to take our loop and we're going to twist it. And last but not least, we're going to take our end piece of our strand and we're going to stick it through our last little loop here. And there you have a really simple one-stranded braid. Now last but not least, for our pretzel sticks, we're going to start by rolling it out nice and thin until we have a oval shape. From here on out, we're basically just going to roll it up, making sure that we slightly pull it at the top so that it gets narrower to get that really nice, almost crescent-like shape. I'm going to start pulling a little bit to make sure that it gets narrower. And that's it. Now to make sure that these don't dry out, I'm going to cover them once again with my wet cloth. And I'm gonna let this proof for about another 20 minutes before putting it into the fridge for an additional 30 minutes. Now while our pretzels are finishing up their proofing in the fridge, we can already prep our Lye Bath. Now I'm doing a DIY at-home Lye Bath with baking soda, but if you have actual lye, you can feel free to use that as well. Now for my Lye Bath, I'm using 50 grams of baking soda with 1 liter of water. I'm using a nice tall pot just because the baking soda sometimes bubbles when you add it to your boiling water. So just being a little bit safe with that as well. Plus, it just gives you a little bit of extra room to work with as well. Now to make our Lye Bath, we're basically just going to bring our water up to a boil and then carefully add our baking soda. Now the Lye Bath is basically just going to give our pretzel baked goods that wonderful brown color as well as that distinct pretzel taste. So we're basically just going to carefully transfer our baked goods into our Lye Bath. We're gonna let it sit there on each side for about 30 seconds before transferring back to our lined tray. Now feel free to also add any other toppings such as poppy seeds, sesame seeds, or coarse salt. Now I recommend adding those when it's fresh out of your Lye Bath so it acts kind of as a glue. If you wait too long, it's going to be kind of dried up and there's not going to be that layer of your wet Lye Bath to hold all your toppings. So again, just add it when it's fresh out of your Lye Bath. Now for our porcupines, we're going to use a pair of scissors to create the spikes. Now you do want to make sure that you do this after the lye bath to make sure that you get that beautiful contrast between the really white inside color and then the golden brown outside color. You're basically just going to cut in and then you get these really beautiful spikes. And you're going to do that pretty much all over, leaving a little bit at the front, which is going to be like the face of our porcupine, but everything else can have the beautiful spikes. Now for the eyes of the porcupine, we're just going to stick in 2 raisins. These can now wander into the oven that's been preheated to 230 degrees Celsius, and they're going to bake for about 15 minutes or until they're nice and golden brown. And there you have it, our pretzel baked goods 4 different ways. So that's going to be everything for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up or write me a comment down below. And as always, the whole recipe is going to be in the description box as well. And I'll see you next week for another video.